There was a time when this land was ruled and enslaved by a wicked god. His was a reign of terror and madness, and all who challenged him were consumed in the unholy flames of darkness. But there was a slave who stood up and raised a rebellion against the god's tyranny. However, he could not hope to fight against the god's awesome power. As he lay dying, he prayed to heaven and begged for the strength to face the darkness. At that moment, his wounds were healed, and a fair goddess appeared before him in the form of a great dragon. The goddess said to him, "O brave youth, take up your sword. I grant you the power to conquer evil and bring my peace to this land." The goddess was Utona, creator of the Four Guardians and the daughter of the mother goddess Miradona. With Utona's blessing and love, the hero slew the foul god and freed his people. He became king over the land and led his kingdom to a prosperous future. He now rests in peace with his fallen friends, and his children are left to carry on his will. But his spirit of justice and freedom will never perish from this world. Welcome to TearRing Saga, Chronicles of Utona's Heroes, a 2001 PlayStation 1 game by Enterbrain and TearRing, a company founded by Shozo Kaga, creator of the Fire Emblem series. And as you will see in a moment after this loading screen, this is basically a Fire Emblem game in everything but name. We have the same style of maps, we have monsters, we have mages, wyvern riders, Pegasus knights, sword masters. We have players taking turns to move across a map. We have evil sorcerers who summon monsters, just like Cantors in Gaiden, though those harpies are new. So, you might be wondering, what exactly is TearRing Saga, and why does it exist? The year was 1996, and Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War had just released in May. In June, the Nintendo 64 released in Japan, and with it, one question was on everyone's lips. Would the next Fire Emblem game be on the Nintendo 64? Shozo Kaga was asked this a few times in interviews, and every time he dodged the question. However, Kaga had a dream project, a return to Arcanea, the world of Marth. This would be a big game, fleshing out the lore, the world building, and even featuring return appearances of characters like Zane, Camus, and Michaelis. In a 1999 interview, he was forced to admit that this dream was too ambitious for the Super NES, and that he would instead be making Fire Emblem Thracia 776. Kaga hadn't given up on his dream game, however, but if you read this interview carefully, you'll notice that while he wanted to do it with new hardware, he never mentioned anything about the Nintendo 64. On the 15th of August that year, Shozo Kaga left Intelligent Systems and by extension Nintendo, half a month before his last game with them, Thracia, released. This is only speculation, but a lot of people, myself included, believe that Kaga always had his eye on the PlayStation, even while Thracia was in development. But he obviously couldn't develop for that console while still with Nintendo, so he formed his own company, TearRing, named after the first castle in Fire Emblem 4's second generation, and his first game for this company would be Emblem Saga. A new game set in the same universe as Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light and occurring at the same time, story-wise. Obviously, Nintendo wasn't keen on that, so Saga quietly changed the name to TearRing Saga and removed all the direct Fire Emblem references, which enabled the game to release in May as planned, and then Nintendo sued them a month later. Interestingly though, Nintendo lost the lawsuit for copyright infringements, though they did appeal the case and get Enterbrain and Turnanog to pay 76 million yen in damages for unfair competition law breaches, apparently. But the game was still allowed to be sold. The game, though, suffered the same fate as every Fire Emblem game before Smash Bros., being Japan only. Despite this, did you know that the lawsuit might have had ramifications for Western developers too? It set the precedent that creators were allowed to make spiritual successors to franchises they once helmed, without it being considered copyright infringements. In other words, this game is the reason Mighty No. 9, Ukulele, and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, among other things, can exist. And that's a perfect segue into my next topic, why I'm covering this game on the channel. I sum up this game as Mighty No. 9 for Fire Emblem, except actually good. If you've played a Fire Emblem game, or even have a cursory knowledge of the series, this game is not very hard to get into. Everything in it plays virtually identically to its inspirational series. It's also not a particularly difficult game by Fire Emblem standards, at least I don't think so. The only real accessibility issue is the fact that it is Japan only, so you will need to get hold of a fan translation. The first fan translation for TearRing Saga was released in 2012, and that was how I first experienced the game, and grew to love it so much. However, this translation was very incomplete. It did a fantastic job for the first 8 chapters, became average for the next part of the game, and in the final third, it turned into this. So, despite how much I enjoyed this, I was holding off until a better fan translation came out before I played it on the channel, and lo and behold, in late 2016, they released a much improved translation patch that covers the entire game in non-zero wing quality. This patch was mostly helmed by one person, though I will bring up something here. There are a few controversies with this translation patch. It is more of a fan localization than it is a fan translation, changing a few of the original totally not Fire Emblem skill names into their Fire Emblem equivalents. For example, this game has a skill that's associated with Swordmasters and lets them attack 5 times in a single round. Except it's not Astra, it's Dragon Saints. This patch calls it Astra anyway. But the controversy didn't stem from that, but the fact that this translation patch rewrote a few plot points from the original game in a way that its author felt fixed some glaring story problems in the original. None of these are anything really major. The core storyline and most of the dialogue is faithfully translated, but I just wanted to mention that I am aware of this and will be discussing all of these plot points once we get to them. But I also want to say, please do not harass the original creator of this translation patch. Sadly, they already suffered a lot of that after these changes became known. Overall, I have nothing but praise for this patch. I think this game really deserved a translation that wasn't, well... But one more slightly related thing that I want to talk about is that the intent of this playthrough is not going to be to glorify Saga and his era of Fire Emblem and say that it is so much better than all of the rest of the series. I'm personally neutral on both eras of Fire Emblem, and there are games I like and dislike from both of them. I think they both have their merits, and to me it doesn't matter who made it. TearRing Saga is just a game that I happen to like, and that's how I want to present this to you. Evaluating TearRing Saga on its own merits. That said, a few Fire Emblem references now and then are going to be inevitable. And with that, next time we'll be diving into the game itself. Let's go.